All right, so today we're going to tackle one of philosophy's oldest and, you could say, most ambitious projects ever. I'm talking about the attempt to create a complete inventory of, well, literally everything that exists. It's like trying to build the ultimate filing system for reality itself.
So, where do you even start with something like that? Well, you start with the biggest, most basic question you can possibly ask. It sounds so simple, right? But believe me, answering it has kept philosophers busy for literally thousands of years. The question is just, what is there?
Okay, so to answer that huge question, philosophers have a special tool. It's the concept of categories. And here's the best way to think about it. Imagine reality is just this massive, chaotic library. Categories are the ultimate filing system. But they're not just the labels on the shelves, they're the highest level sections themselves. Like science, history, art. They're the basic buckets that everything in existence has to fit into.
All right, our story kicks off in ancient Greece. This is where we see the first serious attempt to systematically map out the world, and it comes from Aristotle. What he started really set the stage for a debate that's still going on today.
Aristotle's big idea was actually pretty straightforward. He thought that reality has its own built-in structure. These categories, they aren't just ideas we make up. Nope, he believed they're real, objective features of the world itself. It's kind of like finding the natural grain in a piece of wood. The universe, for Aristotle, has a definite structure, and our job is just to figure out what it is, to discover it.
And here they are, Aristotle's famous 10 categories. Now, look at the top one, substance. That's the most important one. It's the what of a thing. A man, a horse, a rock. Everything else on this list is just a way of describing that substance. So let's take a horse. Its quantity? Maybe it's 4 foot tall at the shoulder. Its quality? Its weight. Its place? It's in the Lyceum. You see how this works? Aristotle thought that if you answered all 10 of these for anything, you'd basically have a complete blueprint of that thing's existence.
So, for almost 2,000 years, Aristotle's system was pretty much the answer. It was the gold standard. But then, a philosopher came along with this totally radical idea that just flipped the entire project completely on its head.
And that philosopher was Immanuel Kant. His argument was a bombshell. He said we can never know reality in itself. Never. Instead, he argued that these categories, they're not out there in the world waiting to be found. They're actually pre-installed filters in our minds. Think of it like operating system software for your brain, stuff that organizes all the raw data of experience before you're even aware of it.
And this is the absolute core of the whole debate. On one side, you've got Aristotle, the realist. He says we're like explorers discovering the features of a world that's already there. On the other side, you've got Kant, the conceptualist, who says, no, we are the map makers. We impose the structure of our own minds on everything we experience. So the fundamental question becomes, are we discovering the world's filing system, or are we the ones who built the filing cabinet in the first place?
So as you can see, Kant's list looks totally different from Aristotle's. And that's because he didn't get it from looking at the world. He got it by looking inward, at the structure of reason itself. He asked, what are the absolute rock-bottom rules for how we think? Take something like causality, the idea that every event has a cause. Kant argued, we don't learn that from experience. It's a rule our brain has to use to make any sense of the world at all. It's built in.
Okay, so after this huge showdown between Aristotle and Kant, you can imagine what happened next. A lot of skepticism started to creep in. I mean, if these two absolute giants of philosophy could come up with such wildly different systems, well, maybe there isn't one single right answer. And with that, the floodgates opened for all sorts of new and competing systems.
And that really poses the big problem for modern philosophers. If you have all these different maps of reality, how on earth do you choose the right one? Is there even a right one? What would the criteria even be to say, yep, this is the one? It's a tough nut to crack, and it made a lot of people question whether the whole project was even possible.
So for example, you had a philosopher in the 20th century named Roderick Chisholm. He said, look, the most fundamental way to slice up reality is to separate the things that have to be true from the things that just happen to be true. So on one side, you have necessary truths, like 2 + 2 = 4. And on the other, you have contingent things, like the fact that I'm wearing a blue shirt. For him, that was the master division.
Then you have others, like Hoffman and Rosencrantz, who started in a completely different place. They said the primary divide isn't about necessity, it's between the abstract and the concrete. Basically, things you can stub your toe on versus ideas like the number 5 or the concept of justice. A completely different starting point, right?
And then you get even more complex systems, like the one from E.J. Lowe, who proposed 4 fundamental categories: objects, kinds, modes, and attributes. And really, what this whole explosion of modern systems shows is that your starting point is everything. The first big division you make really determines the entire map of reality that you end up drawing.
Okay, so with all this disagreement, you'd be totally fair to ask, so what? Why does any of this matter today? It seems super abstract, right? Well, it turns out this whole project is actually still incredibly relevant.
And this is where the rubber really meets the road. For starters, understanding categories helps us think more clearly and avoid confusion. The philosopher Gilbert Ryle came up with this brilliant idea called a category mistake. It's like if someone took a tour of a university. They see the library, the labs, the lecture halls, and then at the end they ask, okay, great, but where is the university? See, they're making a mistake. The university isn't another thing on the list. It belongs to a whole different category. And this isn't just a philosopher's game. This same thinking is crucial in cognitive science for understanding how our brains naturally sort the world, and in information science where people build the massive databases, and even the AI that organize our digital lives. And this brings us to a quote from Jan Westerhoff that I think really sums up the modern view. He says, "The categories are not the most fundamental parts of the world, but the most fundamental parts of our systematization of the world." What he's saying is, maybe this whole quest isn't about finding the true hidden joints of reality. Maybe it's more about understanding the maps we create to make sense of it all. The focus shifts from the territory to the map itself.
And that's where this 2,000-year-old debate comes right back to you. I mean, think about it. The next time you're organizing anything, your thoughts, your schedule, even just the files on your computer, ask yourself that fundamental question. Are you discovering a structure that's already there, or are you the one imposing the order?